Hello everyone, for Telesur, I'm Cody Weddle in Caracas, Venezuela. Thanks for joining us. To begin, the Colombian Senator Iván Cepeda has responded sharply to criticisms that he didn't follow established rules during a debate in Congress over former President Álvaro Uribe and his alleged involvement with right-wing paramilitaries. Now, Cepeda says the criticisms are proof of the systemic persecution by the right wing there in Colombia. Álvaro Uribe accused Cepeda of visiting former paramilitaries in prison in order to get them to testify against him, something Cepeda denies.
Unfortunately, in Colombia, the reaction is to persecute, to try to deprive people from their rights, their political rights, like had happened in other cases, such as with Piedad Córdoba, Mayor Petro, and other figures in history who have suffered these kind of consequences due to their activities and their beliefs.
And we go now to Colombia with our correspondent, Natalia Margarita. Natalia, I'm just wondering if you can sort of break this down a little bit for us and give us some more details on this case of Iván Cepeda.
Yeah, well, in fact, as you were mentioning before, the General Inspector has launched an investigation on allegedly some testimonies that were picked up by Senator Iván Cepeda against Álvaro Uribe Vélez, and that he allegedly, Iván Cepeda, paid to some paramilitaries for those testimonies. But what's beyond that is that here we're not talking about just one paramilitary testifying against Álvaro Uribe, but we're talking about at least 29 paramilitaries that have given their accounts on paramilitary ties with former President and nowadays Senator Álvaro Uribe Vélez. Also, we need to remember that this is not the first time that the General Inspector Alejandro Ordóñez decides to launch an investigation into those senators that have been carrying out debates on Uribe's ties with paramilitaries. It is important to remember also that in 2010, this same General Inspector launched an investigation into human rights advocate and back then Senator Piedad Córdoba, who in fact was in 2010 removed from her post as senator and also barred from holding public offices for 20 years by this same Inspector General. And just 1.5, almost 2 years ago, this General Inspector did the same, intended to do the same with the current mayor of Bogota, Gustavo Petro, who back then was a senator, also holding debates against exposing the links between Álvaro Uribe and paramilitaries. So what is at stake here, or what this latest case with the Senator Iván Cepeda is exposing, is a political persecution from the General Inspector against all those that in the Congress have been exposing the ties of the Inspector General Ali Álvaro Uribe Vélez.
And Natalia, let's switch topics here for a second. Elections are approaching quickly there in Colombia. What updates do you have for us on elections? We know there have been some investigations related to electoral fraud, and some other voters have lost their electoral ID. So are there worries about the process there in Colombia?
Indeed they are, Cody. This has to do with electoral crime that has been denounced long time ago, that has to do to what we call here in Colombia electoral transhumance, meaning people registering to vote in places other than where they actually live. So as a response to that, the National Electoral Council here in Colombia decided to somehow ban some IDs from votation, but they did a mistake, and it happened that around 1,600,000 IDs that were actually not involved in this electoral transhumance electoral crime were wrongly banned. So they're trying to solve the problem right now, but we need to remember that we're just a couple of days ahead of elections. So what many people suspect here is that, in fact, many people are not going to be allowed to vote.
Well, that's something we will, of course, need to keep an eye on. Natalia Margarita there in Bogota. Natalia, thanks.
Back to you, Cody.
Argentina also votes this Sunday to elect its next president and vice president. 32 million Argentines are eligible to vote for one of the 6 presidential candidates who won their party's primary elections. Now, polls put the ruling Front for Victory's Daniel Scioli in the lead, but it is unclear if the election will go to a second round. Now, the right-wing mayor of Buenos Aires City, Mauricio Macri, is in second place, with the centrist Sergio Massa trailing him. And now it is not clear if Massa would back Macri in a runoff or whether that would be enough for Macri to beat Scioli.
We must be very careful because there can be a last-minute shift, which will define the matter of the first round or ballotage. The debate isn't about who comes out first. I think that it's also not who comes out second or third. Furthermore, there can be doubt in respect on how much Massa has grown, but in our case, we don't have to imagine Macri in second place. And yes, what is a great doubt, the great uncertainty of Sunday, which won't be resolved on that same day, is the issue of the first round of the ballotage.
Evo Morales has become the longest-serving Bolivian president ever. At an ancestral ceremony in the pre-Inca city of Tiahuanaco, Morales thanked Mother Earth for his 8 months and 27 days in office. Now, he surpassed Andrés Santa Cruz, Bolivia's first indigenous president, paid homage to the Bolivian people and social movements, which he said are basic for the Bolivian revolution. A revolution achieved thanks to anti-imperialist and anti-capitalist policies, according to Morales.
These days, we have listened to several Bolivian brothers, presidents, international agencies, wondering what is that miracle of Bolivia appearing overnight with economic stability. I want to tell you, sisters and brothers, if there is a miracle, that miracle is being anti-imperialist, anti-capitalist, and the conscience and the unity of the Bolivian people. That is the miracle to save Bolivia.
Y la conciencia del pueblo boliviano, la unidad del pueblo boliviano es el milagro para salvar a Bolivia.
A new petition for the impeachment of Brazilian President Dilma Rousseff has reached Congress. Now, opposition lawyers filed the new petition, which is considered the most serious attempt so far to impeach Rousseff. That's because it is based on a federal audit court ruling that her government manipulated its accounts to disguise the size of the deficit and allow for more spending in the run-up to her narrow re-election last year. The petition has to be accepted by the Congress's president, Eduardo Cunha. Meanwhile, Cunha is accused of being involved in the Petrobras corruption scandal. Now, it is not clear yet when he will make his decision, which has been postponed now for over a week. OPEC and non-OPEC oil-producing countries are to continue discussing how to stabilize the world oil market. That was the outcome of their special meeting in Vienna. Now, the rare joint meeting did not discuss specific measures to cut production, according to Russian delegates taking part. Now, on Tuesday, Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro said that Venezuela, along with countries such as Iran, Russia, and Bolivia, were hoping an agreement could be reached to push the price of petroleum back towards $88 a barrel. The current price is currently averaging $45 a barrel.
We will see that the presidents and heads of states of the oil-producing countries agree that we regulate and export and control the market and the price of oil, parting from a new conjuncture that has arisen.
The Mexican government has finally agreed to allow military personnel to be questioned in connection with the Ayotzinapa case. But there is a catch here. Investigators will only be able to question military staff in writing. Officials also agreed to work in cooperation with a group of independent experts to allow them to continue the investigation into the high-profile disappearance of 43 student teachers that took place last year.
What we are trying to determine is if the facts, the events and the people who were there in the 3 different moments that's during the attack, after the attack, and the investigation, were there in this official version?
Still in Mexico now, the capital's volcano erupted on Tuesday, spewing huge clouds of ash in a spectacular fashion there. Now the Popo, as it's called, located 80 kilometers southeast of Mexico City, there you see it there, expelled a spectacular column of ash just before 2 in the afternoon. The column rose 2,500 meters above the crater there. 42 exhalations were reported on Tuesday following a series of rumblings at the massive volcano in recent months. And in Guatemala now, authorities warn that flooding and mudslides may soon hit the country due to the heavy rains that are affecting Central America. Now, El Salvador is on yellow alert since Monday, and 4 people have died there. However, authorities say they expect some clear days to come. The storms are now headed towards southern Mexico. Now we go to Peru, where shocking new stories are emerging about Catholic authorities and their abuse of children. Our correspondent in Lima now with that report.
Journalist Pedro Salinas published a book on Monday on the abuses by the Catholic cult called Sodalitium. Among a series of violations, the book documented 3 cases of child abuse, including repeated rapes by the founder of the organization, Luis Fernando Figari.
What we have run into is the design of a vertical organization, authoritative and totalitarian, which has as its spiritual guru a cruel, perverse, abusive, manipulative, and intelligent character who promotes the cult of personality around himself.
The scandal has inspired many former members of Sodalitium to speak out. Martín Balbuena was a member for 8 years, and he believes there are many good people in the organization, but he thinks the leader who created the structure is deranged.
The idea of changing others to do good made me dream and got me involved more every time, and I ended up becoming a member of Sodalitium. Once I was there, and especially after I left that love, that turned into a deception.
Another former member, Jorge Ocampo, explained how he became part of a brainwashing system.
On the background, there is a process of manipulation with kids of 15, 16, 17 years of age who do not know they are being analyzed. How and who are their parents? Approach him this way. Tell him this. Invite him to a barbecue. And then we do a casual talk and we start getting him involved.
Cases have been filed denouncing the abuses of Sodalitium with the Archbishop of Peru and the Vatican. But despite the great deal of evidence surfacing, the only action taken so far has been to recall the founder of the organization to a private life in the Vatican. Rael Mora, Telesur, Peru.
Moving on now, also this Sunday, Guatemala will hold runoff elections to decide between the 2 candidates who won the first round for president, the comedian Jimmy Morales and former First Lady Sandra Torres. For further details on this election in Guatemala, we turn to our correspondent Gerardo Torres. Hello there, Gerardo. Is there any favorite here for the second round there? And what about the chances that Valdizons, a former candidate there, that those supporters there will now support Morales? Is that possible?
Well, hello, Cody. This Sunday, the Guatemalans will decide for the new president. 7.5 million Guatemalans are called for voting. The favorite candidate is Jimmy Morales. He has an advantage of Sandra Torres since the first round that occurred on September 6th. And it's much likely that the followers of Valdizon will join Morales and probably make the bigger the difference. The only chance that Torres has is to gain new voters that didn't participate in the first round, that he could add in this election.
And Gerardo, in the last few months there, they've been very turbulent, first of all, with corruption scandals, the resignation really, of both the vice president and the former vice president, Otto Perez Molina and Roxana Valdetti. How is that scandal and what happened there going to affect these elections now?
Well, the elections happened 3 days after the President Otto Perez Molina put his resignation. after the pressures of the Congress and after almost 4 months of people in the streets demanding an investigation against impunity in the corruption and the participation of his participation and Vice President Navarrete. The politician Alejandro Maldonado assumed power as a president that only will last a small period that has the responsibility for this election and to pass on to power for the winner between Morales and Torres. The sectors in the population of Guatemala are high, but many say that they don't feel represented neither by Torres or by Jimmy Morales, and they're just expecting who of them could win. But the social movement that began against Pérez Molina are sure that they will continue demanding that there will be no impunity and no corruption in the new government that is about to begin.
And very quickly, Gerardo, because I think it's important to talk about sort of the electoral process there. We know already that 20 people have been killed so far during this process. Authorities say they're deploying thousands, 59,000 police and military officials to protect the process. Can we expect a safe election day there?
There will be 34,000 policemen and more than 20,000 military with prosecutors and international observers. We're talking about more than 60,000 people that were observing and giving security during the election. There could be confrontations. What is expected by the government is to minimize as possible this confrontation, and that there will be no registration of people murder or violent encounters in the elections on Sunday. There's a lot of movement and security around the election, and hopefully it should be a peaceful one.
Right, let's hope for a safe process there and that people can cast their votes and their ballots in peace and decide their new president after what has been a turbulent few months there in Guatemala. Gerardo Torres, thanks so much.
Thank you, sir. Yes.
Around the world now, in what is believed to be the first visit since 2011, Syrian President Bashar al-Assad flew to Moscow on Tuesday to hold talks with his Russian counterpart. Now, during what was called a working visit, the two leaders discussed their joint military campaign against rebels in Syria. Now, according to the Syrian president, Assad and Putin held 3 meetings in which Russia's foreign minister and defense minister were also present. President Assad also took the opportunity to thank the Russian prime minister for his assistance via Russia's air campaign.
The terrorism that is now spreading today would perhaps be, without your decisions and actions, would have spread to even more territories and states, not just in our region, but to other regions too.
President Assad's visit to Russia did not go unnoticed by Turkey. The country's prime minister reiterated that any transition period to solve Syria's civil war has to be without President Bashar al-Assad in power.
On Assad going to Moscow, Russia has clearly illustrated its support for this regime with their intervention. What can I say? I wish he would stay in Moscow longer so Syrian people could have a break, or he could stay there forever so the real transition period could begin.
Canadian Prime Minister-designate Justin Trudeau has made good on his campaign promise and confirmed his country will end its combat participation in Syria and in Iraq. Now, he also says Canadian fighter jets will be withdrawn from Afghanistan. Trudeau spoke with his U.S. colleague Barack Obama to notify him of his intentions and said Obama has accepted his position. The Liberal Party swept Monday's elections with 40% of the vote and 184 seats in Parliament. Canadians will also be expected that Trudeau comes through with his pledge to legalize marijuana in the country.
I spoke with President Obama and we talked about Canada's continued engagement as a strong member of the coalition against ISIL, and I committed that we would continue to engage in a responsible way that understands how important Canada has as a role to play in the fight against ISIL, but he understands the commitments I've made around ending the combat.
Government forces in Afghanistan continue their battle with the Taliban as they try to push back the militants in the Helmand province. Now, the forces had a fierce day of fighting the day before, but were joined by hundreds of fresh troops and elite commandos who helped bolster their efforts. Now, according to an Afghan soldier, the soldiers were making progress and the Taliban have suffered heavy casualties. The Secretary General of the United Nations, Ban Ki-moon, met with Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas in Ramallah and pleaded for an end to the spiraling violence between Palestinians and Israelis. Now, recent clashes between Israelis and Palestinians have left dozens dead. Sunday saw a particular rise in violence following an attack on a bus station that left a member of the Israeli security force dead and 10 others wounded. In a bid to bring calm to 3 weeks of deadly unrest, the UN chief said his visit reflects the sense of global alarm and added that all the recent killings should be thoroughly investigated. At a transit refugee camp in Slovenia, tents were allegedly torched by refugees who are angry at how they are being treated there. Now, the fire was set to protest the slow registration process and have also complained about the lack of food, water, and blankets in the camp. Last week, Hungary closed its border with Croatia and Serbia, citing security concerns. As a result, the migrants have been diverted to Slovenia on their way to Western Europe. The president of China is still on his official 4-day visit to the United Kingdom, and the two countries are expected to sign deals worth over $45 billion. President Xi Jinping addressed British politicians in London's Parliament on Tuesday before being treated to a grand state banquet at Buckingham Palace that night. Among the trade and investment deals that are expected to be signed are major infrastructure projects and developing nuclear power stations. The expected flagship deal is a plan for two state-owned Chinese utilities to invest in a $25 billion nuclear power project being built by French utility EDF in southwest England. Golf pro Tiger Woods visited Mexico on Tuesday to promote the sport and also lead a clinic in Mexico City. Now, he also called for youths in the region to get behind the sport. Woods called for more accessibility to golf in Mexico and across Latin America to inject some new blood into the sport. After holding a news conference, the former golf #1 headed to Mexico City's iconic Chapultepec Park, where he helped children with their golf swing. It's an expensive sport, though, golf. Plenty more on all of those stories and others at our website, telesurtv.net/English. For Telesur English, I'm Cody Weddle. Have a great day.